My name is James Wright. You bring trouble.
What is it you've come here for?
The story begins with a group of soldiers hunting down a prisoner through the jungle. After a long chase, they finally capture him and force him onto his knees. The captain points a gun at the prisoner's head, ready to pull the trigger, but suddenly changes his mind at the last second. Instead of killing him, the soldiers drag him back to their camp. When the prisoner James is brought before the ruthless Japanese commander Ito, he shows no mercy and immediately orders his execution. James is taken to a remote area outside the camp, where Captain Hirano prepares to behead him. Calmly, James kneels down as Hirano places his sword against his neck, carefully lining up the perfect strike to kill him in one blow. But just as the sword comes down, James suddenly moves out of the way. Hirano misses, and the guards rush in to attack. James fights back brutally, killing every soldier in his path, including the captain himself. With the entire camp now after him, James escapes into the jungle. The Japanese soldiers quickly track him down, and during the chase, he accidentally falls into a hidden trap. His knife slips from his hand, leaving him unable to cut himself free. Surrounded with no way out, James is captured once again. When James is dragged back to the camp, the commander is shocked to see him still alive. Furious, he demands to know why his execution order was ignored. The captain explains that James tried to escape but was caught in one of their traps. The moment Commander Ito learns that James killed several of his soldiers along with Captain Hirano, his anger explodes. He walks up to James, rips the military badge off his uniform, and tells him that Hirano was like a brother to him. Killing him, he says, was the biggest mistake James ever made. Then he coldly warns him to enjoy his victory while he still can, because tomorrow he'll die a slow and painful death. After James is taken away, one of the captains offers to execute him immediately, but Ito realizes that James isn't afraid of dying. Killing him quickly would mean nothing. Instead, he plans to make an example out of him. The next day, there will be a brutal fight, where James will be tortured in front of everyone until he dies, sending a message to every prisoner in the camp. James is then thrown back into his cell under heavy guard. Around him are countless other prisoners the Japanese army has captured over time. Many of them have already died from the constant torture and abuse inside the camp. That night, the prisoners quietly talk among themselves inside the cells. One of the men tells James that even though they're prisoners, they still follow military discipline to survive. Everyone has rules to obey, and breaking them usually means death. He also explains that their commanding officer is being held in another cell and plans to meet James the next day. James gives a hopeless smile and says he may not even live long enough to see tomorrow. The Japanese soldiers already promised to kill him, but when the prisoners hear that James managed to kill 3 soldiers, including Captain Hirano, they begin to respect him instantly. Some of them even pray for him to survive. Later that night, James thinks about escaping the camp, but another prisoner warns him that escaping is pointless. Even if he gets out, there's nowhere safe to go. The camp only keeps prisoners strong enough to work nonstop, while weaker men are sent to another prison camp nearly 60 miles away. Rumors say prisoners are forced to march there on foot, and many die before they ever arrive. Hearing this, James begins to think death might have been the better option after all. The next morning, all the prisoners are brought outside. On Commander Ito's orders, a soldier walks toward James holding a sword. James is sure this is the moment he dies, but instead of killing him, the soldier cuts the ropes around his wrists. Shocked, James watches as 3 other prisoners are dragged into the fighting ring beside him. Ito announces that the men were caught hiding food inside their cells. To make sure no one else breaks the rules, he plans to punish them in front of the entire camp. Commander Ito calmly pulls up a chair and sits down like he's about to enjoy a live show. The moment a bell rings, a massive fighter walks into the arena from behind the crowd. The prisoners call him the dealer of death. The 3 prisoners accused of stealing food are ordered to fight him first. They know they don't stand a chance, but refusing to fight would get them killed anyway. One of them charges forward only to be knocked out instantly with a single punch. The others try to fight back too, but none of them can even slow the fighter down. Within minutes, all 3 prisoners are beaten nearly to death, and fight is over before it even really begins. Now it's James's turn. Ito gives only one rule. The fight ends when one of them dies. The giant fighter steps forward confidently, clearly believing James will be easy to kill, but the second he attacks, James drops him with one brutal punch. Before anyone can react, James grabs him and smashes his head with enough force to kill him instantly. The entire camp falls silent. Their strongest fighter had just been destroyed like he was nothing. Even the guards can't believe what they just saw. Ito is furious and storms away in anger. One of the captains tells him they need to execute James immediately, but Ito refuses. He says James is different from the other prisoners, and because of that, his death needs to mean something. Whether today or tomorrow, James will die eventually. The next day, another prisoner named Gabriel jokingly asks James if he's hiding rocks inside his fists after the way he killed the fighter. Soon after, James finally meets Colonel Collins, the prisoner's commanding officer. Collins was badly injured in an explosion before being captured, leaving one of his legs permanently damaged and making it difficult for him to walk. Collins asks James where he learned to fight like that. He tells him that he's been trapped in the camp for months, and no one has ever survived the arena before. James explains that he trained all over the world in Hong Kong, Thailand, and even Japan itself. Soon, a captain arrives and takes James to Commander Ito. Curious and frustrated, Ito asks the same question. Where did he learn their fighting techniques? But James refuses to give him a straight answer. While speaking to him, James notices a military badge hanging near Ito, the same badge that belonged to his father. He demands it back. Instead, Ito slices James across the face as punishment for disrespect. Then he warns him again to enjoy one last good night of sleep, because tomorrow he's definitely going to die. The next day, James is brought back into the arena. This time, the prisoners cheer his name the moment he steps outside. But it quickly becomes clear that the fight is completely unfair. A whole line of fighters is waiting for him, and he has to face all of them at once. As soon as the bell rings, they rush him together, but James is ready. He tears through them one by one, beating them so badly that some fighters actually try to run away from the ring. James chases them down and keeps fighting until nobody is left standing. At the end of the match, James grabs one fighter by the throat and starts choking him to death. The man is Japanese, but none of the guards step in to help. They simply watch. But at the last second, James lets him go. Once again, Ito is humiliated in front of the entire camp. Worse, James is becoming a symbol of hope for the prisoners, and that's the last thing the Japanese commanders want. Later, Collins asks James why he spared the fighter's life. James simply says the soldiers were only following orders. Just like the prisoners, they were trying to survive too. Nobody there wanted to die. At the same time, Ito orders the execution of the soldiers who lost in the arena. Even his own men aren't safe from his cruelty, proving he has no humanity left in him at all. Later, Gabriel tells the others that in a week, they'll all be transferred to another prison camp. Some prisoners hope the new place might be better than this nightmare, but Collins knows the Japanese too well. He warns them that more than half the prisoners will probably die during the march, especially the injured and the weak who can't keep up. James comes up with a different plan. He says they need a radio. If American forces are still stationed near the coast, there's a chance they can contact them for help. The problem is that the only radio in the camp belongs to a guard stationed in the watchtower. The next day, several prisoners intentionally start a massive fight inside the camp. The guards rush in to stop the chaos, believing the situation is getting out of control. While everyone is distracted, James quietly climbs the watchtower and steals the radio. The guards eventually fire warning shots into the air and force the prisoners to calm down, but by then James has already completed the mission. During his escape from the tower, a nurse suddenly spots him. James quickly tells her to stay quiet. Before she can respond, a guard walks in and starts harassing her. When she resists, the guard violently slaps her to the ground. Luckily, he never notices James hiding nearby and eventually leaves. Watching everything from the shadows, James feels terrible for her, but there's nothing he can do without exposing himself. James quickly hides the stolen radio and the prisoners, secretly smuggle it back into their cell. One of the prisoners warns him that the radio can only receive signals, not send them. If they try contacting anyone, the guards will catch them immediately. He also fears that once the Japanese realize a radio is missing, they'll torture every prisoner until they get it back. But James stays calm. He tells them the camp has several radios, so losing one probably won't raise suspicion right away. The next morning, Commander Ito gathers all the prisoners outside. He announces that some inmates were seen entering restricted areas of the camp. Then he points directly at Collins, but Collins refuses to back down and tells Ito he's accusing the wrong man. Instead, the guards grab another prisoner and drag him into the fighting ring. Ito demands the names of everyone involved. He promises to spare the prisoner's life if he talks. Terrified, the man finally gives them the names, but Ito never intended to keep his word. Moments later, both prisoners are executed anyway. That night, James approaches another inmate and asks if he knew the men who had been sneaking around the camp. If they knew a way out, then maybe he does too. At first, the prisoner refuses to help, afraid James might betray him like the others were betrayed. But after the rest of the prisoners convince him, he finally reveals a blind spot near the edge of the camp, the only place where someone can escape without being seen by the guards. That same night, James sneaks out carrying the radio. He makes his way deep into the jungle, putting as much distance between himself and the camp as possible. Eventually, he turns on the radio and hears voices coming through the static. The men on the other side are speaking in Navajo code. Meanwhile, a soldier enters the prisoner's cell for inspection. At first, everything seems normal. All the prisoners are lying in their places. But when the guard pulls the blanket off James's bed, he finds nothing underneath except stuffed sacks. James is gone. Surprisingly, the guard doesn't raise the alarm. He quietly covers the bed again and walks away without saying a word. Out in the jungle, James keeps listening to the radio transmission. He can hear American voices speaking in Navajo code, confirming that U.S. forces are somewhere nearby. Even though he can't understand what they're saying, it gives him hope. After gathering enough information, he sneaks back into the camp before sunrise. The next day, James meets with Collins and Gabriel again. He tells them the Americans are close. Then he reveals a risky escape plan. On his way to the camp earlier, he noticed a glider nearby. Collins explains that the glider has no engine, meaning it can't fly on its own. But James says it's not an ordinary glider. It has a towing hook attached to it. If another aircraft flies low enough, the glider can connect to it and get pulled into the air. His plan is simple but dangerous: somehow signal an American pilot, hook the glider onto the plane, and escape the camp from the sky. Gabriel immediately points out the problem. If the timing is even slightly off, the hook won't connect, and the entire plan will fail. The risk is enormous. Before they can discuss it any further, a guard suddenly arrives and orders James to come with him. Once again, James is brought before Commander Ito, but this time things are different. Instead of threats and violence, Ito treats him with unusual respect and even offers him a chair to sit in. Ito asks James what he knows about the Navajo language. James pretends he has no idea what he's talking about. Ito explains that it's an indigenous American code language being used by the US military. He wants James to find someone who can help decode it. James tells him that even if someone did understand the code, no American would ever help the Japanese. But Ito believes fear can break anyone. He says people will do anything to survive, and if nobody talks, none of the prisoners will ever see their families again. Even if they survive the camp, they'll probably die during the prison march. And if they somehow survive that too, an even worse camp is waiting for them. Still, James refuses to be intimidated. The guards drag him away, but Ito admits to his captain that killing James now would solve nothing. The captain argues that James is already their biggest problem and should be executed immediately. That's when Ito suddenly snaps. He reveals that American and British forces are getting closer every day and could attack at any moment. To him, that is the real threat. The following day, the guards brutally torture James. They beat him repeatedly with wooden sticks until his body is barely able to stand. By the end, he's exhausted, bleeding, and almost completely drained of strength. But the torture isn't enough for them. Even in that condition, James is forced back into the fighting ring. The guards think he's finally broken. They couldn't have been more wrong. The second his restraints come off, James explodes like a wounded animal. He tears through the soldiers with pure rage, beating them so badly that most of them can barely stand afterward. This time, he shows absolutely no mercy. Watching his own men get destroyed again, the captain screams at them in frustration, calling them all cowards. The captain is furious that trained soldiers keep losing to what he calls just a prisoner. He begs Ito for permission to kill James once and for all, but Ito refuses. Deep down, he's embarrassed by every defeat James has handed them. Instead of punishing James, Ito takes his anger out on the prisoners, executing several of them before storming back to camp. By this point, James collapses from his injuries. When he finally wakes up, he finds himself inside the Japanese medical unit. To his surprise, his wounds have been treated, and a nurse has been assigned to care for him. James recognizes her immediately. Her name is Teresa, and like him, she's also a prisoner. She tells James that Ito has become paranoid. American forces are getting closer, and Ito believes an attack could happen at any moment. If it does, he's prepared to kill every prisoner before letting anyone escape alive. That night, Ito visits James alone. He admits that James is a great fighter, but warns him that there are still many battles ahead. Then he calmly says that tomorrow will finally be the day James dies. James is tired of hearing it. He tells Ito that he's already made the same threat 3 different times. If he really wants him dead, then why keep dragging this out? James points out that every soldier sent against him ends up broken or dead, and eventually there will be nobody left except Ito himself. When that happens, James says, the only person left to fight him will be Ito. For once, Ito has no response. He simply turns around and walks away in silence. Later, James returns to the prisoners, who are shocked and relieved to see him alive. One of them reveals that while James was recovering, American planes flew directly over the camp. That confirms that US forces are extremely close now. The prisoners realize they only have one chance left: use the radio and contact the Americans. They know sending a signal could expose them instantly, but at this point, they have no other option. That night, James and Gabriel sneak out of the camp once again, hoping to contact the Americans with the radio. But before they can get far, a guard spots movement nearby. James immediately realizes the mission is too risky. Killing another guard would only make things worse and put the entire camp in danger. So the two quietly turn back and return to their barracks. A short time later, guards rush into the prisoner's cell to investigate. But when they look around, every prisoner appears to be exactly where they should be. The next morning, Ito gathers everyone outside once again. He announces that prisoners broke out of their barracks during the night and attacked Japanese guards. Ito says he knows more than one person was involved and orders those responsible to step forward. James notices that Collins has already been badly tortured for information. Realizing they're blaming the wrong man, James steps forward and admits that he was the one who killed the guards. Ito smiles coldly and says he appreciates the honesty, but reminds James that he wasn't alone. The guards drag another prisoner forward, claiming they caught him during the escape attempt. Then Ito gives James a horrifying choice. If James kills the prisoner himself, the man's friend will be spared. James refuses. He won't murder an unarmed prisoner just to save himself. Without hesitation, the guards shoot the prisoner dead right in front of him. Since James disobeyed the order, Ito decides Collins will be next. But the moment the soldiers move toward him, Collins suddenly snaps. Despite his injured leg, he attacks the guards with savage force, beating them so brutally that their screams echo across the entire camp. The guards eventually overpower him and drag him back into his cell, but the damage is done. The prisoners have stopped fearing the Japanese, and the camp is beginning to fall apart. That night, James confronts Ito and demands that Collins be released, but Ito refuses, saying Collins broke the rules and the punishment is death. James fires back, telling Ito that if he really has courage, he should stop hiding behind soldiers and fight him himself. But Ito is too smart to take the bait. He believes in never entering a fight he might lose. James spits at that mindset, calling him a coward to his face. Furious, the guards drag James out of the area. By now, James knows they're out of time. If they want to survive, they have to contact the Americans tonight. The plan is risky. They'll mix random Navajo words into the transmission so the Japanese waste time trying to decode the message. By the time they realize it's meaningless, it'll already be too late. After dark, James and Gabriel sneak out of the camp once again. They quickly set up the radio and begin transmitting. Luckily, the frequency connects with an American channel, and for the first time, someone answers back. Gabriel immediately starts speaking into the radio. Glider, glider, no motor east, 27 degrees. A voice on the other end replies, copy that. In between the real information, Gabriel throws in random Navajo words and meaningless phrases to confuse the Japanese listeners. After a while, he starts getting nervous. He worries they may have added too much nonsense and that even the Americans might not understand the message. But James stays confident. He tells Gabriel not to worry. The Americans will know the signal came from prisoners risking their lives. Sooner or later, they'll figure it out. James and Gabriel finally make it back to the camp, but something feels wrong immediately. The cells are completely empty. Before they can react, guards suddenly surround them and beat them unconscious. When James wakes up, the entire camp is in chaos. American planes are bombing the Japanese base from above, blowing apart buildings and defenses. The attack has devastated the camp, and the Japanese soldiers are now trying to execute the prisoners before escaping. Teresa rushes over and frees James from his restraints. She tells him everything changed after they were captured. The moment the bombing started, Ito completely lost control and began killing everyone in sight. As James and Teresa run outside, they see the camp burning all around them. Prisoners who tried to escape were shot dead on the spot. But seconds later, another bomb drops nearby and tears several guards apart instantly. James heads toward the watchtower to retrieve the radio, but more guards block the way. Teresa tells him to keep moving while she and another prisoner handle them. Pretending to be in pain, they lure one of the guards closer. The second he lets his guard down, they stab him repeatedly until he collapses dead. Meanwhile, James reaches the tower area and sees guards lining prisoners up for execution. One by one, they're being shot. His own friends are next in line. Forgetting the radio, James immediately opens fire on the soldiers before they can pull the trigger. The prisoners finally fight back, attacking the guards in the middle of the chaos. At the same time, Collins faces off against the Japanese captain in a brutal hand-to-hand fight. Even injured, Collins refuses to back down, but the captain proves to be a dangerous opponent. The battle between them is evenly matched, with neither side willing to give up. Just when Collins is about to kill the Japanese captain, a soldier suddenly shoots him from behind. Collins collapses to the ground and dies before James can reach him. At the same time, James storms into Ito's command post, but instead of running, Ito is calmly sitting there waiting for him. James tells him there's nowhere left to escape now. Ito simply smiles and says, "Who said I was running?" Then he throws a sword toward James and challenges him to one final fight. The two clash in a brutal sword fight, but Ito quickly realizes he can't match James's strength. The moment his sword is knocked away, he pulls out a pistol. Before he can fire, James grabs him and throws him across the room. James beats him relentlessly and is seconds away from killing him when Gabriel suddenly stops him. Gabriel warns that they have to leave immediately because the American plane is almost there. As the prisoners run toward the glider, the Japanese captain spots them and raises his gun to shoot, but Ito stops him. In that moment, defeat and shame are written all over his face. Even if he killed James now, it wouldn't change the truth deep down. He knows James was right. He was always a coward. So Ito lets them go. The surviving prisoners finally reach the glider. Working quickly, they secure the ropes and prepare the towing hook. Everyone climbs inside as an American fighter plane flies low above them. The pilot drops the hook and brings the aircraft dangerously close to the ground. This is their first and only chance. One mistake could destroy the entire plane and kill every single one of them. Luckily, the plan works. The hook locks perfectly onto the glider, and the American plane pulls them into the sky. After everything they survived, they finally escaped the camp. But not everyone is as lucky. As the burning prison disappears beneath him, James promises himself that one day he'll come back for the prisoners who were left behind. 8 years later, after World War II has ended, James returns to Japan. He's there for one reason: to settle unfinished business with Ito. But when he arrives, he learns that Ito died a year earlier. Instead, James meets Ito's son, Suke. The moment Suke discovers discovers that James is the fighter who humiliated his father for the rest of his life. He orders his students to attack him. James didn't come looking for another fight, but he has no choice. One by one, he defeats every student without breaking a sweat. Watching this, Suke can hardly believe what he's seeing. Eventually, everyone gives up. Suke then asks James why he really came to Japan. That's when James learns the truth about Ito's death and realizes the man he hated is already gone. Hearing that, James quietly turns to leave without saying a word. But before he can walk away, Suke stops him and asks for one final fight. He wants to know if the stories his father told about James were actually true. James accepts, and the two warriors face each other for one last battle. Suke attacks James with his strongest move, but James sees it coming instantly. He counters with ease and defeats him within seconds. It becomes clear that James was holding back the entire time. If he wanted to, he could have ended the fight with a single punch. But instead of humiliating Suke, James offers him a hand and peacefully ends the battle. Suke then tells James something his father once said, that one day the fighter would return to Japan because something important still belonged to him. That's when Suke reveals the item Ito had kept all these years, James's military badge, the same one Ito took from him in the prison camp. Suke explains that his father protected it until the day he died, believing James would eventually come back for it. James quietly takes the badge in his hands. For a moment, neither man says a word. Then both bow to each other with mutual respect. With his father's badge finally returned, James walks away, bringing the long and painful chapter of his life to an end. And with that, the story comes to a close.